Had a terrible job with a nightmare HR guy. On a particularly bad day, I met a broke, divorced, and very pregnant woman who needed to eat dates to induce labor. Her drug addict friend refused to help her. I spent my rent money to buy her dates and give her cash. I was so emotionally wrecked, I took a sick day, got fired for it, and on the car ride home, received a job offer for 4 times my salary at a much better company. The prayer of a stranger changed my life. Karma is real, and sometimes it's spectacular. Today, I messed up by buying dates for a pregnant stranger, which got me fired. Then my life exploded in the best way possible. All right, Reddit, settle in because this is a wild one. It's a story about how a simple act of kindness, a bag of dates, and a prayer from a desperate stranger completely upended my life. It sounds like fiction, but I swear on my now cushy remote job, every word of this is true. Let's rewind to the first Thursday of August 2024. Picture this. It's one of those disgustingly hot, sticky summer days where the air is so thick you feel like you're swimming through soup just by walking. I had just clocked out from my soul-crushing job as a CEO's assistant, a title that sounds way more glamorous than it was. I was physically and mentally drained, drenched in sweat, and just utterly defeated after yet another day of dealing with HR. There was this one guy in HR, I'll call him HR Chucky because he had the dead-eyed plastic smile of that creepy doll, who had made it his personal mission to make my life a living hell. For weeks, he'd been haunting my days with passive-aggressive emails and my nights with stress dreams. I was at my breaking point. My commute was another layer of misery. I lived in a tiny rented apartment, conveniently located near the company's main pickup route. But in a daily display of petty power, the bus driver always dropped me off last. He had this bizarre need to redesign the city's geography based on his ego, and I, a single woman, was apparently a threat to his fragile masculinity. I was so tired of it, so tired of having to re-educate prehistoric men on basic human decency. That day, I just couldn't take it. I asked him to drop me off near a local high school, not bothering to explain that it was closer to my house. I was done justifying my existence. After a quick, joyless trip to the market for some vegetables, a wave of intense thirst hit me. I spotted a cafe that, honestly, looked more than a little questionable. It was dimly lit and seemed a bit grimy, but it had a sign that was pure gold in my world. Family room. For those of you who haven't had the pleasure of living in a deeply conservative, religiously traumatized country, let me paint a picture for you. A family room is a segregated, often enclosed area in a public space where women are allowed to exist without being harassed or judged. Because in this society, the most offensive sight imaginable is a woman daring to drink a cup of coffee in public. It's a sad, oppressive reality, but on that day, it was my only hope for a few minutes of peace. The cafe manager, a surprisingly polite man, guided me to the little room. Owners of these places usually love female customers. We're quiet, we order, we drink our coffee, maybe have a smoke, and we leave. We don't occupy a table for 6 hours, screaming at a soccer match on TV and slamming dominoes down like we're splitting atoms. I was dressed in a black tailored suit, my curly hair rustled into a severe bun, my professional armor. In my reality, this was the look of a competent working woman. But to the unofficial morality police that roamed the streets, a woman in mismatched pajamas and worn-out slippers was somehow more respectable than I was. The hypocrisy is staggering. Inside the family room, there were 3 other women and 1 man who had a delicate, flamboyant air about him. I gave a general, polite greeting and settled in, ordering a coffee, a bottle of water, and a piece of date cake. I just wanted to be invisible, but of course that wasn't going to happen. Suddenly, one of the women gasped, "I know you!" It was an old colleague, someone who had also been a neighbor years ago. She jumped up, full of drama, and announced to the entire room that I was her very, very close friend, and the kicker, the personal assistant to a CEO. The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. One of the other women, who had been sizing me up since I walked in, literally choked on her tea. She looked me up and down with pure disdain and sneered, "You? A CEO's assistant? If you're a CEO's assistant, then I can be the CEO myself." The flamboyant man next to her erupted in a high-pitched, cackling laugh that sounded like it belonged in a drag show. It was humiliating. My old colleague, to her credit, jumped to my defense, fiercely reminding the woman that I had been kind to her in the past. The mocking woman's face immediately changed. Panic set in. "Oh, I was just joking, sister. Please don't be offended," she backpedaled, her tone now syrupy sweet. I just offered a tight, polite smile and turned my full attention to my coffee. I didn't have the energy for this drama. Throughout this whole exchange, the third woman had remained completely silent. I noticed her large, round belly. She was heavily pregnant. Trying to steer the conversation to literally anything else, I asked her how far along she was. "I'm due today," she said, her voice soft and tired. "But my cervix hasn't opened. The doctor told me to walk and eat dates to help things along." Naively, I said, "You should really be at home resting, not breathing in all the smoke in here." She gave a sad little smile. "I live on the 8th floor, and the elevator is broken." My heart sank. Then she turned to her friend, the same one who had just mocked me, and asked if she could go buy her some dates from the market. The friend scoffed. "They're too expensive," she said dismissively. "Besides, I need to buy my rocket." For context, rocket is street slang for pregabalin, a prescription nerve medication that's widely abused here as a narcotic. My blood ran cold. This woman was prioritizing getting high over helping her pregnant, full-term friend induce labor. The pregnant woman just fell silent, her face a mask of resignation. It was devastating to watch. "And your husband?" I asked gently. "I'm divorced," she whispered. "So, what will you do?" I pressed, my voice barely audible. "I don't know," she breathed, her eyes welling up with tears. I had to look away to hide the fact that my own eyes were filling up too. I couldn't stay there another second. I quickly paid my bill, left the cafe, and walked straight back to the market. I bought 2 kilos of the best dates I could find. Then, on impulse, I took out all the cash I had on me, my entire budget for the week, the money I needed for rent in a few days, and discreetly slipped it into the bag of dates. I went back to the cafe and asked the manager to give the bag to her, saying it was a gift. As I walked away, I heard her voice, clear and strong, sending a prayer out into the universe. "May God protect you," she called out. "May no harm ever touch you." I cried the entire weekend. It was a gut-wrenching mix of sadness for her, anger at the world, and a strange sense of peace. Come Sunday morning, the start of the work week here, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't face HR Chucky. I was emotionally shattered. I texted him that I was sick and couldn't come in. He replied with a single, curt word, "Rest." The next day, Monday, I was summoned to the office by a junior HR assistant. She quietly, almost apologetically, informed me that I was being terminated for unauthorized absenteeism. One day, I was fired for taking one sick day. I didn't even bother to argue. I didn't go to see Chucky. I just packed my personal belongings from my desk, walked out of that building for the last time, and ordered a ride home. On the way, a friend called, completely out of the blue, to ask if my company had any job openings. I let out a dark, ironic laugh. "Yeah," I said, "mine just opened up." He laughed, thinking I was joking. "You're too good to get fired," he said. "What happened? Were they racist or something?" "Apparently, the hospitality industry in my country has a major problem with curly hair," I replied, the joke landing with a thud. We hung up. I stared out the window, numb, and then my phone buzzed. A notification, an email. The subject line read, "Congratulations, you have been hired." It was a job I had applied for weeks ago and had completely forgotten about. A remote position, for 4 times my previous salary, with commissions, and the promise of future equity in the company. I sat in the back of that car, stunned, and signed the entire contract on my phone. I've been with that company for over a year now, and yes, like the Eminem fan I am, the first thing I did was update my LinkedIn profile and publicly drag HR Chucky and his whole toxic department for their unprofessionalism. It was glorious. Every morning, as I log on to work from the comfort of my bed, I think about that pregnant woman in the cafe. I think about her quiet desperation and her powerful prayer. A woman that society sees as powerless, a woman on the absolute margins, completely rewrote my destiny with a few heartfelt words. Maybe the people in that cafe thought she was weak. Maybe the world saw her as insignificant. But on that day, she was the director of my life story. And the entire universe moved for her.